allow me to invite my guest, or to reel in my guest this morning, Honorable Alpha Miruka, who is the MP for Bomachoge, Chache. Karibu sana mheshimiwa.
Asante sana.
A lot has been happening in the country. It's good to see you. The last time we were here, I think it was last year.
Yeah, it was last year actually.
Good. A lot is happening in the country, and I don't know where to begin. Or maybe we can begin with the Ministry of Irrigation and Infrastructure. Yesterday, the CS herself was appearing before the committee on irrigation and water, and she pointed out that the slashing in the supplementary budget of around 46 billion shillings, and that is the crisis. That's the biggest crisis that we are having in the country. 5 failed seasons. We need more money in that ministry so that we can sink more boreholes. We can increase the water pans. We can look at how to increase the dams and how to harness this water, as well as look at irrigation, because we have said, and even the president has talked about, changing from rain-fed agriculture to irrigation. But with this slashing, this is not gonna, we are not going to see the fruits now.
Of course, it's obvious that we are going to have an effect of this slash. But I want to tell you, currently every ministry there's a budget cut for the supplementary. Every ministry, including Parliament. Parliament has a cut of almost 20 billion. Now, I think what the government is doing, it's trying to achieve the reduction of 300 billion, which was expected to be a cut in the budget. Remember, if we cannot encourage budget cut, that means we are going to get more borrowing. I remember we are suffering from the international debts. The country is struggling to pay debts. Now what the government is doing is just, first of all, to reduce some activities internally by slicing the budget to fill others, for us not to overborrow for the external borrowers.
But Mheshimiwa, looking at the estimates, and indeed it is true that a lot of ministries are having some budget cuts.
Yes.
But looking at the water and irrigation ministry and what we are currently having in the country, the situation is not getting any better. Yes, we are waiting for the rains, but the situation is not better. There are other cuts, or at least, if it's we're talking about 46 billion, even 2-3 billion, but we have seen even State House has a budget increase. But it will feel for a Kenyan that we should have looked for these budget cuts in other ministries or in other sectors as well.
Actually, I want to agree with you somehow, because in the Ministry of Water, that's why we expected some additional money, because we are facing now a lot of drought. People are suffering outside here. There is no rain, no food. That means I expected the Ministry of Water to be given more money for them to make more dams, more boreholes, more water tanks, people to harvest water. But when there is a slight of 46.3 billion, if this figure is accurate, this is too much for the ministry. I sympathize with them, but now we cannot work. This is the figures we can work on it, because every ministry has a sliced budget cut. But what I may request our president, who is very active, let him try to make this government be an active government. We have two types of government. We have a proactive government, which plans things ahead. We have a reactive government which waits somebody to die out of hunger, then that is the time we look for funds, we look for donors to take food there. But if we were having a proactive government, these drought seasons, it's not something new. Every year we have a drought, we have rain season. The only challenge you're having this time is that the drought period has prolonged so much. You see now it's affecting everywhere, including Kisii, where we experience rain almost daily. Now we are experiencing rain after 2-3 weeks. Njue in Kisii, rain doesn't rain within a week, we feel it. Now what about other areas like Northeastern? Let the governments empower this ministry, which is led by Wahome. Wahome used to be a very good member of parliament. Then now, let them analyze the entire country where people are suffering. For example, in Kajiado here, you saw the other day, parents are queuing together with students, pupils in school to get food.
Yes.
That's a serious occasion. Let the government, to me, in the main budget now, we have started making the new budget for the new financial year. Let them consider having the Ministry of Water having more funds for it to at least they focus on water harvesting. Let me tell you, if a government can provide water tanks in every home, water tank is not expensive. In fact, 5,000 liters, around 40,000. Every homestead to have a water tank, and you are subjected that when there's a lot of rain, because rain will come to rain, we harvest water to use during the dry season. Then we start from water harvesting, we go to dams, we go to sinking boreholes, and then there is another member of parliament who had a very good idea. In developed countries, we go to England, they are using seawater. People don't have problems of water the entire country. We have Lake Victoria here. Our rivers are draining water from the up country towards the sea. Why take water to the sea? We should develop mechanisms of tapping this water to be used during this time of drought. That to me, let the government sit down and make a good structure that will solve this drought season once and for all.
Yes, and of course, I totally concur with you that we need actually to look at other sectors if we have to do budget cuts. But still on the same, we saw the First Lady of America, Jill Biden, was here for at least 3 days, and it's a good thing that she didn't come empty-handed. Yesterday, the President did note that the U.S., through U.S. aid, has given us about 16 billion for drought mitigation. And in as much as we are looking at getting our own solutions, this is a welcome boost.
That's a lot of money. The only challenge, Njue, we are suffering with corruption. I hope this government of our President, Dr. Ruto, is a good friend of mine. And I'm sure if we can focus on reducing waste in government, it makes his government to be not a weak government, to be a strong government in terms of fighting corruption. Such a money that the First Lady from the United States of America, that's a lot of money. It can change our communities, let me tell you. If it will be channeled well, it will be the intended purpose of the money to be accomplished in time. Let me tell you, we're going to have a good environment using the same money. But the challenge we're having is corruption. Let me tell you, corruption is a bad omen in this country. If the current government can reduce corruption, then this country is going to go very far. Remember, economically, we are drawing behind Nigeria, we are in third in Africa. But if you come back to our area now, our people are suffering because basic commodities are very high. Our living standards are moving very high. You see, the Kinara ODM is having a lot of rallies, is capitalizing the challenges we're having outside to make rallies. If the government can pick what is affecting the common man and they try to focus on it, let me tell you, we're going to be very far in this country.
And it's a good thing that you've mentioned on the corruption, because there are some aspects in terms of how this money is going to be utilized. We're talking about approximately 1.3 million people who are urgently in need of food items such as sorghum, maize, yellow split peas, and vegetable oil from families living in areas where local markets are not functioning. Maybe this would a little bit alleviate the issue of corruption. And also, I would like you to touch on counties' preparedness, because we have seen some counties like Wajir has declared the drought situation a disaster. So they are channeling a lot of resources towards the drought situation that we have in the country. This is something that can also be a big boost to counties who have talked about additional funding by the national government.
That's what I want to agree, but sometimes I fail to understand, because remember, you're having every county has a budget from national government. Every member of parliament has CDF. Those are now the wing from the national government. We have 3 wings, by the way. We have the county government. The national government has 2 wings. A wing from the member of parliament and a wing from the national executive under the ministries. That means headed by the ministers. You find an area like now, Northeastern. They know they have drought problems. But their budget, if you can scrutinize their budget, you find their priority list in their budget is not even drought mitigation measures. You find now, for example, I saw the other time, now governors, their recurrent expenditure is 70%, development expenditure is 30%. That's so bad. Let the ministry, let the government decide that we cannot pass a budget from a specific county, for example, affected counties like Turkana. Let them at least give them that leeway, that their budget, their chunk of money, let them invest in the current problem that is now drought and food. If they can use the money they have to make boreholes, to make dams, to purchase water tanks for every individual. Are you getting it? To provide water to every village. We may not be having these problems. Let me tell you another challenge you're having. If you walk around this country, you find a lot of land unutilized. And if you do research, you find these several acres of land are owned by individuals who are able. You find somebody has 10,000 acres of land in Kajiado, and the same person, he has just only fenced and he has left it there. Let the government have a policy that if you own more than 5 acres, you must produce that land. You must have you must provide water through another means. Either you have a dam, or you have a borehole, and plant trees. Those are some of the basics that government should make sure that everybody who has a piece of land more than an acre, let him plant trees. It's a comparison. Like now, you must pay school fees for your kid. It's a comparison. You must struggle and pay school fees. In that way now, we should also struggle to make our environment perfect. We may not be having these problems of drought.
Yeah, and of course, we are expecting the rains in the next couple of weeks, and we are hoping that for the first time ever, we are going to be utilizing this water, because at the end of the day, we have a lot of water, but when we come to the drought situation, the situation becomes a little bit worse. Let's first of all take a quick break. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back, and thanks for keeping it KBC. This is News Check, and we are looking at the state of the nation. And earlier on, we were discussing the budget cuts. Yes, the government wants to slash at least 300 billion in a year. And one of the casualties has been the Ministry of Water and Irrigation. And we were just looking at some of the issues that we may come up. Allow me to reintroduce my panelists. Of course, I had introduced Honorable Alpha Miruka, who is the MP for Bomachoge, Chache. And now we are fortifying the bench just next to him. On my left, we have Dr. Isaack Hassan, who is the leadership and governance expert. And just next to him, we have Gibson Gisore, who is a constitutional lawyer and an advocate of the High Court. Gentlemen, karibuni.
Asante sana.
And Wakili, let me just begin with you, because I'm quite sure this is a discussion that has really formed the basis of so many social media chats, and even the religious institutions came out strongly. Even the speaker yesterday, Moses Wetangula, also condemned that. Azimio politicians on Sunday as well did the same. And I'm quite sure this is something that is not sitting well with a lot of Kenyans. But either way, the Apex Court did determine that LGBTQ have a right to association. And the biggest question, I attended one of the pressers on Sunday by the Episcopal Conference, where they said that they're going to be seeking an advisory opinion in regards to that judgment, because they quip, if at all, something that has been declared illegal in Kenya, the people who propagate it have right for association. What does that mean? Does that give way or open floodgates for the discussion on homosexuality in the country?
Thank you so much, Bentry, for giving me this opportunity to appear here once more. And I mean, it's an interesting time we are living in, because we do realize now, people are actually realizing the strengths of our constitution, because initially this was a debate back in the day when we were making the constitution. I think the members of parliament, just to excuse Mheshimiwa, he was not there then. What used to happen is when they used to go to Naivasha to make the constitution, these guys could not be found in the afternoon, and that's the time most of the constitution was made by the NGOs. So we are reaping from that, the sleeping MPs who used to sleep back then, because that was a very hot debate back in the day. And some of the clauses which are shocking people were actually a foresight. If somebody could have looked and audited the constitution back then, could have actually realized that this was going to happen. It was just a matter of time. But now, that is the first side. The second side is that our constitution is an enabling constitution, because most of it is borrowed from South Africa. They went to benchmark in Canada, the US, and you know, these are countries which are well at home with such practices. So you cannot expect anything less of our constitution, given that the other bit I've explained earlier of the NGOs, and we know who funds the NGOs. Now, the big question lies, where do we live ourselves? Where do our people, what are our morals? Do our morals have a standing when it comes to an enabling constitution? Of course, the rule of the thumb is that the constitution is always supreme, as opposed to any other law which tries to contradict it. But people try to argue that the act provides that it's illegal to practice homosexuality in the country. But look at the constitution, which is superior. I mean, then now, when we are at that particular position, the Supreme Court has got to make a decision, and I'm happy the way they did it. That I mean, each judge gave his own opinion, and for me as a person, I like the part of Ouko where he actually came out clean and said, of course, much as our constitution is enabling, there is also, it's not absolute. The right of association is not absolute. You cannot have a group of thugs or murderers have a right to associate. Yes. Yes. So if our people do feel that that is not a practice they should be embracing, then we just need to sit down and agree as a people, is this the right way? The churches are already up in arms saying that this cannot happen. Remember, I don't know the church in Kenya, but I mean, you saw the Pope come to Southern Sudan and the DRC, and he was promoting such things. So I don't know. So the Kenyan chapter is the one which is still not embracing that. So it's something which we need to sit as Kenyans and decide: do we really want to go that way? Is it about time that we do open this discussion? In as much as
we want to leave the big ball for Kenyans, maybe to make a determination or even decide what they want to do, this is something that a lot of people have argued that it has a lot of Western influence. And there's no way, just as you said, and that is the same argument that the clergy have made, that if something is illegal, then how are you going to say that these people have a right to associate?
Yes, that's the question.
Yes, that is the big question, and that's where I was coming to. Now, as a people, we need to sit down and soul search and actually decide whether is this the way we want to go, or we want to take another turn. And that is, we cannot fault the Supreme Court for the decision they made. It's us Kenyans now to just tell them, this is not the way we want to go, kindly. Let's amend the constitution and have limitation to these particular acts, which are considered unnatural. Because tomorrow we have an actual crime called bestiality. Bestiality is where you deal with animals. So tomorrow a group of people will show up in the streets and start telling us we like animals. So we also need to register our association and be able to be associated accordingly. You know, these are some of the things which we need to actually be awake to and be able to say that I mean, I like the way the church is up in arms, and I mean, not only the church. I mean, as a person, you wonder, you watching TV, and will you want your kids to be watching a demonstration of homosexual guys with their flag? And you know, kids can be straight, can be swayed to anything. And so that's not the kind of thing you want to teach your kids. So it's important that we as Kenyans, I like the kind of debate which is going on, that we say this is not the way we want to do. The way the former president Uhuru Kenyatta told Barack Obama when he was here, the U.S. president, that you know, that's not a problem for now. Our problem is water. Our problem is people dying of hunger. We have problems of infrastructure and such things. Let's not deal with your problems, because those are your issues. The other side here, we have better things to do.
All right, I'll be coming with the advisory and how the AG and how, because this is the apex court. Yes. There is no other greater court in the country than the Supreme Court. What are the remedies for this? Because I'm quite sure this is a discussion that is going to be making headlines in the next couple of days. And of course, I would like you,
the beauty with all that is that the Supreme Court is not bound by the decision. They can always review it at any time.
All right. You'll be telling us more about that. But I would like Dr. to also weigh in on the issue. And something that has come up is that the clergy I was there on Sunday, and they said this is a very big deliberate push by the West. We are hungry, but don't don't give us the poisoned chalice or give us spoiled food because we are hungry. And the push is quite immense. We have seen issues in Uganda and also as well in Zambia. I would like you to weigh in on the issue.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ben. First and foremost, I'd like to start by saying that Kenya is a country that believes in God. And when it comes to religiosity, there are boundaries. And these boundaries, they need to be respected. In that, for us to keep our culture, our faith strong, we must do the normal thing and abstain from the abnormal things. Anything that is outside the normal, in the field of psychology, we say it's an abnormality. From the normal thing that a person does day to day, if those things reduces in his life and he starts doing things that are strange, things that are not customarily normal, then we say this person has a challenge, mental challenge. And this is the same with people who have unique sexuality. In that, I mean, homosexuality is not something that perhaps God-fearing people should talk about. Now, how did this homosexuality appear in our domain? One of the things that has brought this is the fact that we always want to be associated with the Western cultures, where religiosity as well as traditional cultures have already become absolute. And in that, people could do anything in the name of human right, in the name of, the right of doing ABCD. People now can do strange things, like Wakili has mentioned. People will have an affairs with animals, and tomorrow they will want to be associated because it is their right. I think we are heading to the wrong direction. And the best thing I think we should always concentrate on is that things which are an issue should not be brought into our domain, so that we give an opportunity for it to be discussed. In that, now we are talking about homosexuality. The more we talk about, the more it becomes real. And I tend to think that it is actually not a good idea for us to give them an opportunity to be discussed. We should discuss them in the corridors of justice. We should discuss them in areas where we give them a bit of, mental health talks, where we should see how they can reason logically towards the right direction. But I tend to think if we concentrate much and start giving a lot of attention to things which are an issue for us at the moment, then just know that it will get a platform in which people could discuss more, and then it becomes real.
And especially in schools.
Especially in our children who are in schools. When they hear this thing, they think that it's a normal thing. We are already struggling with digital technology, which is giving our children something that in essence at their age wouldn't have been exposed to. We have no control over it. They get access to online products that damages completely their brains, and they may reason wildly the way we think that these guys who are currently reasoning in a wild way and advocating for homosexuality will go into reason. So it will be a battle that we're going to have later on, when our children becomes part of the citizens who are supposed to be building this nation. They reason very widely. I think the other aspect that already Wakili has mentioned is that I think when we were doing our constitution for 2010, we rushed without considering quite a number of things, thinking that laws that are applicable in other Western countries are as well applicable to us. I think there are quite a number of things. It's not only about this. There are a number of laws within the constitution that we already know that when you start practicing it, it becomes strange, and it's not something that we can take time to and say that these are things we can adopt You cannot adapt something that you have not conformed to. By the time these Western countries have reached this level of having these laws, they have gone through several stages, which perhaps takes 100 years or more. And when they realize that it is the only option to use in solving their issues, a country like ours, which is just as old as 46, 48 years old, I think we are over-ambitious. We think that everything that happens in the Western countries is something that will going to help us accelerate our civilization, and eventually we will going to have a lot of problems. When we talk about issues of men marrying each other, and yet we have our own ladies, the normal way, I say I don't like giving out figures, because as a researcher it's not good to give a figure that you have not confirmed, but quite significant number of our female are yet to get husbands. And because of that challenge, if we have our ladies who are not yet married, our daughters are not married, our sisters are not married, why are we talking about men marrying each other? And yet the best thing we could think about is how best we can build a family and a generation. And I think my take is that I think these people need help. We need to think of how best we can channel them towards the right direction, so that they come and see the right thing and marry our beautiful daughters and sisters, than thinking about marrying each other as men.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Honorable Miruka, yesterday even the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula did weigh in on the issue, and of course he is opposed to that. There have been several attempts to really push the homosexuality agenda in the country. This is not the first time or the second time, because we are talking about a case that is also is at the Supreme Court, and it had to pass through other avenues like the High Court and the Court of Appeal, of which the decision were 3 judges did concur, but 3 were against. Two were against and 3 concurred. And at the Court of Appeal, it was the same thing. And incidentally, the Chief Justice did sit on that bench. They had 3 judges who concurred and 2 who dissented. And our leaders, we have seen over the weekend, they have weighed in on that issue. And I would like to pick your mind on that. And they have also expressed concerns in terms of, if this precedent is just left like that, we run a risk of our schools, because they have been, now they become recruitment grounds for homosexuality and lesbianism.
It's so sad anyway. And it's unfortunate that we have Kenyan judges who can make that ruling. But let me tell you, that's something which we're not supposed even to discuss about. Because Kenya is a Christian country. In fact, almost 80% are Christians. We value God. We go to church. We know what we are supposed to do. When you find a judge ruling that we must be having homosexuality in this country, that's so bad. Remember, you will kill the entire generation. We are not supposed to live in adapting culture which we cannot afford. We should live to promote our culture. Remember, Kenyan from history is in fact, Islamic and Christianity is 80%. We should not even discuss about the matter. But in the sense that it's now before us, I like the way the speaker, and I'm sure we have to challenge that decision, because we cannot allow, as registered, such events to happen in our country. Even if you see judges, they look like, I'm not an expert of law, neither I'm not a lawyer, but other things you should use your normal senses in making decisions. You have children. Even if you don't have children, your brothers, your sisters have children. You should mind about the future generation. Because even yourself, you are brought to this country because of your mother and your father. Once they join together in a normal marriage, they become a father and a mother. If we encourage those habits in our country, to me, that's so bad. And we should not even give it time to discuss about it.
And I remember, the day before yesterday, the clergy did note that and accused the West of using the chance to give us aid. Now the aid comes intertwined with some of the things that they also are pushing, which incidentally, homosexuality is one of them. They did mention that. They're saying this is a big push by the West, and they're giving us the poisoned chalice. You know, we are hungry, yes, but we don't need to give us, food that is poisoned.
I don't think our country will accept that we are given unapewa msaada with conditions of such.
Which have, we have some strings attached to which now we are supposed to pull around our necks.
I don't expect that donor should be accepted in any way. I strongly believe that we have a president to start with who's a Christian. Every Sunday he goes to church and he reads the Bible clearly. There is no single day you can accept some grants to your country that will ruin your nation, that will ruin your generation. To me, okay, if there is one, I don't expect to be accepted in this country. And again, we should not even advocate. I like the way the lawyers stated it. During that time, most members were sleeping in the afternoon session, and that's the time when the constitution was supposed to be made. But remember, it has stayed with us 10 years. We should review this constitution anyway and make it now better for the Kenyans, because we have known it. We have said we did more than 12 years now. That's why I usually insist we should amend and correct clauses of the constitution that will allow such a judgment in our honorable courts.
Wakili, even Mheshimiwa is concurring.
Before we go to Wakili, there's a point that Mheshimiwa has mentioned, and I think that point I'm going to miss, so I just want to mention it. I think our judges have no mistake in interpreting the law the way it is, because they are the consumers of the law. If they can interpret it in their own way, it will be unfortunate. And what they have done is they are actually interpreting what is in the constitution. And therefore, the root cause is our members of parliament who has given us this raw deal. They should go back and bring back this constitution to the common wananchi, and then we will go into amend where we think it is not applicable to us, and then we move on and then give them again the same book. Otherwise, I tend to think Wakili will going to agree with me. As a judge, you know, you cannot make your own opinion. Someone comes with an issue, you look at how does the constitution say about that, and what are the judgments if in the event that the constitution says this and this person has committed what the constitution has interpreted. So the interpreters are not the people we should accuse. I think the people who have made these laws,
the crafters
of the constitution, should take the responsibility.
Okay.
But again, the interpreters, they should also use their conscience in making judgment.
Yes, and I totally concur with you, because I remember the clergy saying that why should we leave the decision of 50 million Kenyans to 3 judges and who may be swayed, because we saw 3 did agree with that and 2 did disagree with that decision. But Wakili will be telling us, let's first of all take a quick break, telling us why we are being told that indeed we are having some assistance, but it's coming with some strings attached which we are supposed to put around our necks when it comes to matters ethics and ethos. When we'll be right back with more of this conversation, and of course we're also looking at the tribunal that said that Irene Masit is not fit to be a commissioner at the IEBC, paving way for the recruitment of the IEBC chairperson and also 6 commissioners. Is it the first time that we're going to have a clean, lean IEBC? All right, we'll be talking about that when we come back.